disrupted.
America that I thought weird thing to happen. Hello, one and all. Welcome to this edition of Kitz Corner. Hope you're having a fantastic day so far. So there's a bit of breaking news happening in the UK here. About puberty blockers. Now, normally we don't talk about, transgender issues. Like, I'm an ally for the LGBTQ. I like to think that I am. But there are some things that are concerning, some things that are critical and necessary to have these conversations with. And one of them is these chemically induced pharmaceuticals that are being introduced and thrown into, vulnerable children, that could do physical and psychological damage to young kids. And there hasn't been proven effective studies to, understand the concept of this, understand the provisions of this, and the side effects that come with this. And it's one of those things that it needs to be addressed. So here's one of the outlets in the UK, I believe this is Sky News, reporting on puberty blockers in the UK. And there's an announcement here.
Let's just bring you a bit of breaking news, which may be of interest to some of you. It's about puberty blockers. Now, these are drugs that are used to delay the changes of puberty in transgender youngsters. In terms of how they are prescribed by the NHS, there has been a lot of controversy over the last few years about this. At the moment, they are only prescribed to children attending gender identity services as part of clinical research, and they are not routinely offered to children at gender identity clinics, but they are still offered. Well, the government, NHS England, has just confirmed that children will no longer be prescribed puberty blockers at gender identity clinics. This is coming from NHS England. It just broke in the last few moments.
A bombshell decision from officials in the UK. Puberty blockers are banned once and for all for minors in a stunning setback for trans rights activists. We're going to see the latest and how it signals the beginning of the end for woke trans activism. And then
it's such a sad day when you can't even get a Bam Bam or a Pebbles chemically castrated pill to young minors. And this is, again, I try to not a lot of these stories mentioning about transgender and LGBTQ. One, because I don't want to get the woke mob involved. I don't want to be canceled or silenced out. And two, the whole reason for all this, the whole reason that this has become top priority, the bathroom situation or, the don't say gay or pride parades or flags. And the reason this is all getting attention compared to any other news story is that this is a distraction to vulnerable people to get them sucked in to this kind of corporate psyops. And that's kind of what all this is. It's a psyops that's shilling people towards the pharmaceutical industry. You're telling parents and people to induce children with chemical castration pills, these puberty blockers that could do psychological and physical damages to young adolescent children at young ages without any real medical awareness or medical analysis to back the arguments. As they even said in the news report, it's experimental. All these, puberty blockers that they're throwing out to young kids, there's no clinical evidence to say that these are safe. And there's been lots of reports of these puberty blockers that could be damaging to young kids. So again, I have no problem with transgenderism. I have no problem with the LGBTQ. I consider an ally to the Alphabet Clan. But this is something that needs to be taken notice because this is a safety issue. This is a medical safety issue. The same medical situation that we've endured through COVID, through that medical experimentation. They were trying to hide the data. They were trying to vilify people, and they were trying to basically shill people into the pharmaceutical industry. This is another concept of this, that young children are being sucked into this situation. They're being sucked into the psyops of enduring themselves with these chemical compounds, these pharmaceutical drugs that are going to screw up the physical, that do physical harm and psychological harm to these young kids. And there's been countless studies. There's been pediatricians that have been speaking up about this. You know, I've seen Dr. Drew, I've seen Dr. Phil mentioning about this. It is quite alarming. It is quite alarming. And considering other countries like Denmark, Sweden, I do believe, Switzerland, I think, other countries have looked into the study, have looked into the science of this, and they're even considering banning this before the UK even mentioned about this. Shows that this is a problem. This is something that needs to be addressed. And it's just not being told about. It's not being brought to attention, because if you bring this to attention, it's obviously going to get vilified as some sort of anti-trans movement, that you're hurting the kids, that you're not allowing, you know, the kids to be themselves, and you're destroying the LGBTQ movement. You must be a bigot. You must be hatred to people who are transgender. And it's something that does need to be addressed. It's something that is concerning. And, you know, I'm not even a parent. I don't have kids of my own, but I'd be concerned that young kids are being blindsided into experimentation with their bodies, and especially genitalia and hormones, being experimented, changing their DNA, changing their whole conception of human life for pharmaceutical benefits, for the fact that Big Pharma capitalized the idea of transgender movements. They're the ones that are preaching the most for puberty blockers and these medical experimentations that have no medical analysis to prove that they are safe and effective for young kids. Compared to COVID, it's very safe and effective. But that's interesting. UK is now on the board of looking at this through the lens of a more scientific lens, to understand that maybe it's not a good idea to shove puberty blockers down vulnerable children, and basically build them up like, you know, like medical lab rats. And maybe the safest thing for children is to allow them to be children, allow them to actually grow up, because once you hit 18, you know, if you want to transition later on in life, that's your decision. Once you're a grown adult, that's your problem. That's your situation. I have no problem with that. I have no, go. That's your thing. But when we're talking about young kids, young impressionable kids, it is damaging. It is damaging. And this is something that does need to be addressed.